Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sales Entrepreneur Podcast. I am Daniel McComber, and with me today is Allan Draper. We've been trying to make this episode happen for about a year now. We're so glad that we can finally happen. He is an entrepreneur. He's a partner at a law firm, and I should say a serial entrepreneur. He's got many different businesses, both in the sales world and marketing, many different things. And today we talked a lot about the idea of how to structure a business when you're getting started, the importance of media, the importance of hiring people to replace you, the difference between being an entrepreneur and creating a job for yourself. And we go into a lot more topics as well. So I hope you enjoy. Well, I'm curious. I mean, just starting off with that, social media, a lot of entrepreneurs and kind of like sales managers, you could say, or like sales, like VP of sales and stuff like that, they're starting to realize how important it is. But I don't think that every entrepreneur needs a social media presence per se. I don't think that every company needs a social media presence per se. I know that's against what most people will say, but I'm like, I don't know, if the time and dollars spent to social media can also lead to dollars, then great. But if it's not going to lead to more money coming in, then what's the point?
Yeah, I know a lot of entrepreneurs that are very, very successful that don't, they're my age or older, and they figured it out without social media.
Yeah.
So it's just a tool, and there's some business models where you don't need it.
Yeah.
So you can definitely be successful and not be on Instagram or whatever. It really depends on like what are you trying to do?
Right.
Right. It is a really good, social media is a really cool platform if you've just got a lot of hustle in you. You don't have a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because then it's just like time.
Yeah, that's
you know
true.
what I mean?
Yeah.
But dude, some of the most successful business owners and entrepreneurs I know don't have an Instagram account.
No, it's true. And the crazy thing as well is it's kind of like old money and new money. Like you can walk down the street in, let's say, New York, Miami or something. You can walk past a whole bunch of millionaires and not know them, right? And maybe it's old money. Maybe it's the way they made their money. But that's the crazy thing is there's more millionaires without a social media than there is with the social media.
Yeah.
And so people don't realize that, like, oh, the only millionaires and billionaires out there are the ones that I can see online. It's like, no, that's like probably, I don't know what the percentage is. I should look that up, but 20% of all millionaires or something like that. It's really low number.
Yeah.
So people have to realize that.
That wouldn't surprise me. And you talk about like walking down the street in New York, bro, you're walking past like dudes running funds and stuff. Oh, and it's like, okay, those guys are, I had a fund manager. He rented one of my Airbnbs. I think it was the one that I have in St. George. And my partner sent it to me because he like, what did he do? He's like, dude, I could tell this guy like came from money or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And he found this dude's house in New York.
Oh.
Because the guy damaged our house or something. So we ended up with his personal information. We're working through. Guy was super cool, no problem. Like, and he owned like a penthouse that was like, I don't know, less than 5,000 square feet. That was like $25 million.
Right on like Central Park, whatever it's called.
You never hear of this guy.
Like that. Never hear of him.
This guy never posts a video.
Yeah.
But super, super wealthy guy. So it's like, but for me, it's most tools are neutral. They're like, they're like inert, where it's like, and people have feelings like about certain tools. Like some people have feelings about money, right? Yeah. Money's evil. Money is like the root of all evil, or rich people are greedy or whatever. Yeah. Money's just a tool.
Yeah.
Social media is just a tool. Can you do something good with it? Absolutely.
Yep.
Can you do something bad with it? Absolutely. And we, there's this algorithm that we're always fighting against, right? Where you were just talking about how you go to post something and you all of a sudden you find yourself scrolling.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm with you on that. And so it's like, for me, I'm kind of in this battle of how much, like, because sometimes I hate social media and my kids won't have social media until they're at least 16. They won't have cell phones until they're at least in high school. And they're going to have a flip phone for a year plus to show me they can be responsible and things like that.
Nice. Your wife agrees with you on that one?
Oh, she's like leading the pack, right? She's leading the conversation. There's this book called The Anxious Generation. It was written by a social psychologist, New York University.
That sounds like a good one.
And he talks about like how a lot of our problems and the increased suicide rate, all these things with youth are caused by social media, early introduction to technology and things like that. So,
I believe it.
So I mean, I think God has given us like all these tools. He's given us earth. He's given us like water, money, like all these tools. And he's like, hey, you guys need to be good stewards over this. And the better stewards that we are, the more he gives us. That's how I look at it.
Nice.
And I was blessed with, dude, I have a mind for making money.
Yeah.
And I'm passionate about it.
Well, just out of curiosity, I mean, what do you think then about the people who can make a lot of good money who are not like, who are bad guys or whatever like that, right?
Definitely. There's definitely those people, right?
Yeah.
And I think those people are smaller in numbers than the media likes to make them appear.
I think so too.
But there certainly are. There's people that are fraudsters, and it's like, I think eventually it will catch up with them in this life or the next. Who knows?
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's really tough to build tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars in a portfolio without adding some value. Right. I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
You can, you know, the dude from the Fire Festival or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's doing another one, which
I saw
is
that.
crazy.
Number 2. Yeah.
But you know, those guys are rare. Like they usually get, you know, it catches up with them, but it happens. And it's like, you know, I think they're the outliers.
Well, it's so tricky too. Have you ever seen the show Billions by chance?
I've heard about it.
Oh my gosh. It's one of my favorite shows. But at the same time, I kept catching myself cheering for the main character who is innately bad.
Yeah.
kind of a bad guy.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the way that they spun it, I'm like cheering for him. So I was like, wait a second. The law guy is going against the multi-billionaire guy.
Yeah.
The law guy has his bad stuff. The millionaire guy is very bad. Everyone's just kind of bad in the show.
Yeah.
It's like, who am I even rooting for here? And that's the truth. It's like kind of another spin-off of this is you get these guys that want to skip all these steps and they want to just jump into making their money on social media through faking their way to it.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. Where they say, hey, you know, I haven't made millions of dollars yet, but let me teach you how to make $1 million.
Yeah.
Right? And so it's this idea where it's like, there's a time and a place where you can stand up and you can start teaching other people and you can be like the good voice of reason and help others. And I think way too many people are just trying to skip to that part.
Yeah. You know, I was watching these Alex Hormozy videos.
Yeah.
And he's talking about going viral or building great content. And then, so he talked for like an hour. And then his very last point was, you know, what you need to get the order right. And the order is do cool stuff. You probably used the swear word, but do cool stuff, then create. Because if you do something cool, it makes it a lot easier. And that's one of my things, like my battles with social media. I'll see these people and they're just giving like bad advice or, dude, I saw this guy that was, he's well known on social media, great following, probably sells his course, whatever.
Yeah.
And he was telling people that were starting like home service-based businesses that their first step should be to build a personal brand. And I know for absolute certainty that should not be your first step if you're building a home service business. But anyway, like, so there are certainly people out there.
Well, why is it not the first step? I'm curious about that.
No, dude, first of all, like I believe in building a business, not creating a job for yourself. I'm not the guy to follow if you want to solopreneurship or you want to go create a job for yourself.
Yeah.
Every business that I build, it's to scale, and I can't scale it if I'm stuck in the day-to-day.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with dudes that they hang a shingle, they're doing all the technical work. If that's what you want to do, fine.
Yeah.
I'm not the guy for that. If, you know, so there's two pieces. One is you can't build a home service business if you're stuck in the minutia.
Yeah.
So, and if you're the face of the company, you're going to be stuck in the minutia. People are going to be like, I want to do business with Allan.
Yeah.
Dude, nobody knows the company outside of like people that follow my Instagram or whatever.
Yeah.
Dude, I would never. We have tens of thousands of active pest control customers.
Oh yeah.
Dude, nobody has a clue that I own it.
Yeah, and nor do they need to, nor do you necessarily want them to, right?
Right.
So we see what happens in the news recently when the CEOs of big name companies, for better or for worse, start getting into the weeds of things, and then the dude got shot. So I mean,
that's crazy.
That's the
first of all, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing is, if you're wanting to scale a business, you have to separate yourself from the brand of the business.
Yeah.
The brand needs to stand on its own. The second piece is, dude, no one really cares if you have a personal brand. That's not going to really make someone buy your pest control service, your pool service, landscaping service, any type of home service.
Yeah.
There might be some traction there in the beginning, but I've tried to build a personal brand. I have to a very small level. Mm-hmm. Dude, it takes way more work than it's worth. You know what's a lot easier?
What's that?
AdWords.
Yeah.
Like your ROI is going to be a lot better. So this guy he didn't know what he was talking about. His comments on their face were bad, really bad information.
Yeah.
So it's like, but dude, ultimately I'm a capitalist. Mm-hmm. And so he has the right to do that. He has a right to sell a course. And if there's suckers out there and whatever, like I'm fine with that. Mm-hmm. I just think people need, we live in this information age or whatever.
Yeah.
It's on us to figure out what's the good information and what's the bad information.
Well, here's the funny thing too. People's BS meters are total crap. They're total crap.
Very
it's
true.
like how in the world, and the younger, I'm only 30, right? I mean, but the idea is like, even people our age, you'll see someone they like, oh, I hired this media company to come in and do my media. And they're like, oh, okay, cool. All me and you have to do is, what's the name of it? We look it up. Why are you hiring a media company with 100 followers to do your media that's going to give you millions of followers? How much did you pay him? Oh, it's like $2,000 a month. Holy crap, dude. That's not that much. No, but you're not going to get a return on it, I swear. And the crazy thing is the same thing with the followers, right? So it's funny. One of my first mentors ever out of BYU. You went to BYU too, right?
Right.
Yeah. So out of BYU, he was my real estate, Damian Fink. He was my real estate, commercial real estate guy. And we were talking about, what were we talking about? A little bit of like venture capital stuff and like that, and like cap tables. And we kind of were just talking about proposals, or I'm forgetting the word right now. What's the not pitch decks, but pitch decks. We'll call it that. Pitch decks for investments is something. Help me out, guys, in the comments, or whatever. But he was just saying, like, whenever he gets, we'll call it a pitch deck, he gets something for a real estate property or a business idea, right? The fancier it is, probably the more bullshit that's in there.
Yeah.
And that's what he'd always say. He's like, if it was super fancy, he wouldn't even look at it. He'd chuck it in the trash. Because like if he opens it up and it's just like super high quality, this and that, and pictures everywhere, but the information's not there.
Yeah.
He would always tell me, and I've repeated this a few times, but he's like, you have to nerd out in the details.
Yeah.
If you can't, and you as a business owner, I know you know this, if you can't get in the weeds, if you can't get in the numbers and the details and sit with it for days and weeks and put time into it, you're going to have a bad judgment about stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
People who think that they can judge businesses or investments off of face value, they haven't lost enough money.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that's just because of like our current generation. It's all about like flash and flare.
It is, yeah.
And it's like
on social media works, I suppose.
Dude, and it's I don't know, that part really bothers me, man.
Yeah.
It bothers me that someone could go lease a Ferrari and I don't know, they get instant credibility.
You're just like it sucks. Yeah, no, it's tricky because as a business owner, you have to what people are really doing a bad job of right now is assessing how much their time is worth, and they will pour so much time into things that is not worth it.
For sure,
I think I'd say more than anything else. But I mean, so let's talk specifically. I mean, what I was really curious about having you come on too is with your law background.
Yeah.
Very rare that you have someone who is a lawyer and an entrepreneur and also like in the sales world as well. Mm-hmm. A lot of, I don't know if I know a single lawyer that's a sales guy. One of my best friends from college, he did door to door with me and then he became a lawyer. Okay. But then he's like, I'm never going back. He's like, I don't even know how he doesn't know how he did it in the first place. But so I'm curious about your opinion on this. There's dozens and dozens and dozens of like solar companies going out of business this past year.
Yeah.
Lots of small pest control companies going out of business. The alarm companies went out of business a few years ago, right?
Yep.
So what are these guys doing? What's going on? Why are people sucking at establishing a business that's not going to go bankrupt?
And I think there's differences for the different industries.
Yeah, of course.
Like, dude, solar, the market, the interest rates obviously hurt deals. Like, just made those a lot more difficult, a lot higher risk. Dude, honestly, like most business failure comes down to cash flow issues.
Right.
So I think it's like within the first 5 years, like 90+% of businesses that fail are due to cash flow issues. After that, it's, partnerships breaking up and maybe there's a life event or whatever. But, and with businesses that fail, it's kind of easy to look at them and say, okay, this is what happened. Like ABC, whatever. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like with books. I always say like, yeah, dude, anybody could, find a typo in a book or a grammatical error. I'm like, you know what's difficult? Writing the damn book. That's what's difficult.
Yeah.
Right. So,
so you kind of applaud them for taking the chance in the first place.
100%, dude. And that's the thing is that hopefully in the process they learn something.
Yeah.
I have businesses that fail. I have quite a few like decent sized failures.
Yeah.
And, I've recently started listening to people that say, like, hey, you shouldn't seek out failures and failures aren't as good as people talk about or say they are. And it's like, I don't seek them out, but dude, if I have a failure, I'm going to freaking learn something from it. Right. I'm going to, just so I don't do it again, repeat it. But, kind of going back to your question, dude, there's lots of issues that can happen with a small business, especially in the first few years.
What's like maybe one of the biggest things?
Cash management, bro.
Yeah.
They mismanage cash. A lot of times business owners, I had a business that failed that my partner relied too much on the income from the business.
Yeah.
It's like, so that owners relying too much on taking from the business in order to survive and then just mismanaging cash. Because businesses can make money pretty quickly. And it's like, dude, I always say that it doesn't matter how much you make. It matters how much you keep.
Right. Well, with your background in pests, for example, I know that most pest control companies, they have to go out and they have to raise funds every single fall, for example, in order to fund their accounts through to the next year. And so have you dealt with that before, having to raise money? And
so we never did, but I have seen that with a few companies, and those are the companies that honestly they're mismanaging cash because if you start it the right way with a sufficient capital, pest control is kind of cool because you have recurring revenue.
Right. Yeah.
So if you set it up the right way, it's like you really shouldn't have crazy cash problems unless you're like getting over leveraged. Yeah. But the folks that go raise money, and you talk about in the fall, so what's going on is they're raising money to scale the following year. Either they're getting a large door-to-door team or something like that, or they're doing a large marketing campaign. So those are the only situations where it would be justified, but I have seen that quite a bit.
And I guess that would be the idea too, where it's like, hey, you got an influx of cash, and kind of what we were talking about before. People are just not doing a good job of putting the money to places that it's going to multiply. And it's funny, I kind of threw it out there as an example, but I'm not kidding. I was talking with this business owner, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm working on my personal whatever, and I've actually gotten quite a lot of followers here within the past month. It looks like it's taken off. He's like, oh, can I pick your brain? I'm like, you can, but I just told him, like, I've got like 2,500 followers, something like that. And and it's not that big of a priority for me. He's like, no, I'd love to hear. I'm like, okay, cool. So I hear him out, and he's, I couldn't really tell. It was just at a Starbucks. I can't tell how big of a business it was. It sounded like it was pretty large, but he's like, yeah, I just hired this media team on, and it's kind of expensive. It's about like $10,000 a month. I'm like, okay. And what are they going to do for you? And he's kind of listing it off. I'm like, well, are they going to optimize your Google searching, AdWords? Are they going to do, and he's like, I don't know what any of that is. He's like, do you have a person who you hired to manage all this. He's like, no, I'm doing it. I'm like, okay, stop. Like, you don't know what you're doing, so you can't. It's like throwing a dart at a dartboard with your eyes closed. It's like you can't go and find help for something that you don't even know what they're doing. They're just going to take advantage of you. And he's like, they would? I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, it's kind of a friend of mine. I'm like, even more. I hate to say it, but they're going to have a lot of leniency with their judgment on your money because it's not your money. So the best advice I gave him, and I'll give to everybody else, if you don't know the media strategies, but you know that you're a business owner and that you need to improve your media, advertising, whatever, the first step isn't going and finding a media company. No, you need to either create like a partnership or a commission structure or pay a third party person on, and usually pay them off of the growth that will come from the media company. Yeah. Right. So it's like, hey, if you help me onboard a really great advertising company or whatever, I'll give you 10% of the profits that we get from this, whatever. That's how you do it. Yeah. And so, I mean, with you kind of starting, you said that you're focusing a lot on the media side of things, and yours is very niche, and you can explain it in a second. How are you helping that kind of bridge with the people that you're working with?
Yeah. I mean, your point's a really good one, because if you say growth, people will just like take my money, right? Like, and there's a big problem with that.
10x growth, dude.
Yeah. It's like, hey, we're going to help you grow. I think people think, okay, whatever ends up happening, this is a justifiable expense. Yeah. And that's just not the case. So you have to, I follow the strategy of Jim Collins, a book he wrote, Good to Great. It's a fantastic business book, one of my top five.
Top five, okay.
So, and he talks about, he's this analogy of first you fire bullets, then you fire cannonballs. Okay. And so a lot of times we see these media packages, and I own a digital marketing agency. Yeah. And so I'll be the first one to say this, like, make sure that there's some ROI there, and you understand. You don't have to understand how to do exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So before like somebody writes us a huge check to manage their AdWords, we have to make sure there's a clear path to ROI or revenue. Right. And I see so many companies where it's like, yeah, this company's going to help me grow. How are they going to help you grow, and how have you tested it? It's like, let's fire some bullets first, even if it's more expensive. A lot of times what hooks people is they're like, yeah, if you just sign this deal for a year, then it's only 10 grand a month. But if you do it for 1 month, then it's 15 grand a month. Right. But it's like, dude, it's better to do that 15 grand, make sure there's some ROI there. Mm-hmm. But I think people just need to make sure that there's traction. Yeah. Because like I said, they'll just, they see dollar signs, or they think they get sold on something. Yeah. I was talking to this guy, and he asked for my advice about something recently. He's starting a pest control company, and he said the first thing that he did was write a check for 20 grand to a brand and logo company. Oh my God. And I was like, bro, like, and I let him have it. Yeah. I absolutely let him have it. I'm like, sorry, I don't really know you, but you called and asked for my advice, and I'm going to give it to you. I'm like, you just wasted $20,000 because you could have had your middle schooler make your logo. Yeah. And use that 20 grand somewhere else and then redesign later. It's just not that big of a deal when you're trying to get customers. Exactly. So yeah, I think, with hiring a marketing agency, even if you hire mine, like, make sure that you have the money to test out some markets, because even if you're doing, especially if you're doing like an AdWords campaign, dude, in the beginning, there's a learning cycle. Yeah. And Google has to get to know you and be able to trust you, and vice versa. So it takes a while to hone in on like, wait, how are we making the phone ring? And are the people that are clicking on our ads and going to our landing pages, are those the types of customers that we want? There's a lot of different, dots that have to be connected. Yeah. So, I mean, this is such a great point, and something that I get upset about, where it's like, yeah, dude, I'm paying him 10 grand a month for a year. And what are they doing for you? You have to connect the dots to the ROI. Like, how is that company going to help you bring revenue in the door? And if you can't answer that question, you made a mistake. Yeah, you weren't the person that should have hired them in the first place if you can't answer that question. And if you do know like a background and stuff, and you didn't do your own due diligence, and you just shot yourself in the foot. Yep. So what do you think about, because I mean, coming from your pest background, and I know that pest control companies can start from a multitude of different like
avenues, but because your pest control was door to door as well, or was it?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, a lot of the people I know who listen to this are in door to door as well. So going back to the legal side of things, what advice do you give young hustlers out there that are thinking of starting their own? So a good example, one of my best friend ever, he was going to start a window company and then did due diligence, said, no. Going to start a pest control company, did due diligence, said, no. Now he's starting a home services company, and I think that this is the winner. But he also, so he went and he asked a lawyer friend of ours a whole bunch of questions and stuff like that. That's the only kind of example I've ever seen of someone like personally like doing the work to like, he didn't hire an intern, like a lawyer, but he did the work to make sure that he wasn't going to over leverage himself or I guess put himself in a spot where he could get legally sought after. And so I have to like really think about it when I'm thinking anything legal. The words are very different from sales. But so what do you say to like the young hustler that maybe wants to start their own company or whatnot on a legal standpoint? Because we've talked about digital like in the marketing side for a little bit. What do you think like legally they should do with just your business background?
A lot of the approach that I talk about regarding starting a business would surprise people that know that I own a law firm and I'm an attorney and and a lot of the advice I give my law firm partners that run the firm and that actually practice law.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be super happy with me about, but like there's so many hurdles that you have to overcome to be successful in business.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to do things the right way, but there's a part of us, especially the people that are kind of on the lower end of this risk spectrum. We're just looking for an excuse to not do something. We're looking for a scapegoat. Yeah. So like, dude, when the larger your company gets, the bigger the target is on your back. So when you're early, dude, it's like, if you set up your business the right way, where it's not a sole prop, you have the LLC protection where they can't go after personal assets, and you don't underfund your company, and you don't commingle funds, go for it. Like there's only a couple of things.
Yeah, like commingling funds, right?
Don't
like
do
have
that.
Separate bank accounts, right? That's kind of
and the reason why that's
101.
important. Yeah, the reason why that's important. It's important for accounting purposes, but there's only a certain number of ways that a party that's trying to go after you can pierce the corporate
veil and go after your personal assets.
And that's one of the ways is if
you're commingling your funds.
If it's like, dude, I can't tell what the personal assets are from the business assets. It's like, all right, then let's treat them as the same thing, right?
Same thing, yeah.
Another way is if a company was grossly underfunded, undercapitalized.
Okay.
And you got to make sure that the organization of the business is set up so that you have protection from personal liability.
Yeah, because an LLC is good. And someone once asked me, like, oh, should I do an S corporation or a C corporation? I'm like, well, not C corporation. You're not like multimillionaire guy. S corporation, kind of, you could do an LLC. It's taxed as an S corporation. But I just told him, like, if you don't have a really good CPA, get one. And even though they're not lawyers or anything like that, they can help you just from a tax standpoint to know which one of these is a better idea. And so that's kind of where I tell people to start. I'm like, if you don't know how to be incorporated, start with taxes. What's going to help you best with the taxes? Yeah. And then, figure out the legal stuff. Yeah.
So just, a couple of pointers here, because this is a question I get a lot. So, and this isn't, legal advice or tax advice, because it doesn't apply to every single person.
We'll put an asterisk on it.
There we go. Yeah. But generally speaking. Yeah. So what a lot of people don't understand is an LLC is an entity of the state. So what do I mean by that? The IRS does not recognize an LLC. To the IRS, so if we're talking about federal taxes, an LLC does not exist. So what happens is you create a LLC for personal liability reasons to protect yourself from somebody coming after personal assets. You create it at the state level. The IRS will automatically look at that and treat that as a partnership for tax purposes. It defaults as a partnership. You can make an S Corp election for your LLC.
Election, that's right.
Generally speaking, you should be taxed and obviously consult with your CPA, but you should leave it as the default partnership taxation until you make a profit.
Right. Yeah.
So like, and with that amount of information and what I just said about the 3 things that you need to do just to protect yourself legally.
Yeah.
You know those things, start your freaking business, man.
We're good to go.
Stop looking for, you don't need to have an attorney on retainer because if you did, $50,000 in sales last year and you had a net loss, no one gives a crap.
The
You
IRS
have
does
no
not
business
give a crap.
assets. So no one's going to come after you, right?
Yeah. Again, asterisk, you're not going to get audited if you're like a summer sales guy making $2, $3, $4, even $500,000 and running things. I'm like, dude, like as long as you do the basic things that Allan is saying, that's not what they're looking for here.
Yeah, exactly. So I think a lot of people just need to keep that in mind regarding what's the difference between an LLC and an S Corp partnership. It's like, well, they're looked at differently. You can have an LLC that's taxed as a partnership or as an S Corp, and that's up to you. And then a C Corp, you mentioned that, like, hey, you're not this multi-million-dollar company.
Yeah.
A C Corp. The other thing is that S Corp and a partnership has pass-through taxation, which means they're going to get taxed on the personal level. That's how you're going to pay federal tax.
Yeah.
A C Corp gets taxed twice. So you get taxed on the corporation level. So whatever profits the business makes, the business pays taxes on that. And then you also pay it on the personal level.
Yeah.
So it's like, there are advantages to having that. And you have all these corporate strictures and policies that you have to follow if you're a C Corp.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, like get started with an LLC, leave it as tax as a partnership until you're making a decent profit. Then you can make an S Corp election.
I love that. And as a business owner, that you're talking about the profit aspect of like, hey, you're starting an actual business, and this is why I really wanted you to come on too. Is we're not talking about sales guys. Sales guys get their little LLCs for tax reasons, right? Like I got one. Don't get me wrong. Well, we show a profit every year, but our write-offs are pretty minimal because it's just our personal business stuff, right? It's not what we're talking about. We're talking about if you're starting an actual business where there's business expenses, you have to buy a car, not because you just want the tax break, the 6,000 pound tax break, which I do every year, but I'm also not starting a business, right? You're buying a pest control truck with a $10,000 worth of equipment. Okay, cool. We're talking real expenses that need to come from a business account. And that's why I really appreciate about you is that you understand the door-to-door salesman and the salesman, like the 1099 independent contractor who are making great money, who are their own business in a way, not entrepreneurs. I call sales guys intrapreneurs, right? That's a term that is starting to kind of make it come up. Yeah. And it's just the best phrase for it. So I even tell people right now, even though I have part ownership in the company I'm at, I'm not like an entrepreneur. I didn't start the company. I've been an entrepreneur in my past. I still think like an entrepreneur. I don't know like if there's a cutoff to where you like stop being one, right? Yeah. But I do not have an entrepreneur venture right now. I would call myself an intrapreneur because I do kind of run my own business sort of organization within a bigger structure. And I look at my company as the big structure, and I make decisions on a personal level based on if it will help the business. Yeah. And that is an entrepreneur. And that, you can have it in a massive company. You can have entrepreneurs that think that way or just small ones. But again, what we're talking about is an incorporated business structure that you are starting. Yeah. And I love that.
Yeah, no, it's a good point because, and it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier regarding folks that are creating a job for themselves and they're like solopreneurs.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great one too. Solopreneurs. Yeah.
Where it's like they don't have employees, but they still have a legitimate business, and it's like they're the only, payroll for the company or whatever. Yeah. And so that's what it's kind of like with door-to-door reps. It's like, no, absolutely. Create your LLC, your marketing company, whatever. You're going to get some tax breaks. You're going to be able to deduct some stuff. Yeah. Have the, company 1099 the individual or the LLC, and then the LLC pays the individual sales rep. Yeah. So absolutely. And there is a difference between that and, a business. So for me, it's like, my definition of a business. So when somebody's like, yeah, I own a business, it's like, okay, I automatically think, okay, that business grows without him. So it's a pretty high level, dude.
Yeah, that is high. Yeah.
And so people, and I don't like make fun of anybody or like pick on them where they're like, yeah, I own a business. It's like, okay, what do you do? Well, I'm an HVAC guy and I do all my install. I do everything. It's like, cool. You own a job.
Yeah.
Because if you stop working, then you don't have a business, right?
And there's a kind of a cool status to creating a job for yourself.
100%.
Especially for people who come from nothing.
100%.
Right? That's awesome. Hey.
It's awesome.
Like you have to have a lot of determination and self-management skills to do that. So that shows an amazing amount of dedication and all of that.
Scary, man.
Scary. Well, I'd say it's scarier than starting the business because it's like you break your leg and your income's gone.
Yeah.
So it is scary for that aspect of it. But sorry, I cut you off there for a second.
No, that's basically it, right? It's this idea that, and so the people that I talk to are the ones that are like, I'm building a business and I'm going to leverage my time.
Yeah.
And the only way to do that, the only real way to scale a business is to continually replace yourself. So I always say in the beginning, when you start a business, you do what you have to do. Then you do what you're good at. Then you do what you want to do.
Nice.
And that's the goal, right? For most entrepreneurs, it's like, hey, what am I in this for? Well, I'm in it for the freedom, both in terms of financial resources and my time. And the only way to do that is, to build a business that grows without you. Dude, I have a pest control. I was
about to ask. Let's talk about you specifically here, especially since we're kind of going towards the end of this. Maybe answer those kind of 3 steps for you and where you're at in those 3 steps and what your goal is.
So for me, I think, I have north of 20 companies. Now, a lot of them are sister companies, so it's kind of deceiving, but I own a few different businesses. Yeah. And they're at different stages. I'm not really in the day-to-day of any of them. Nice. So I'm probably, with most of them, I'm in the phase, do what I want to do. Nice. And it's a blessing. Some of the businesses, like I was, an actual employee. Oh. Other businesses, I started with operational partners, and I was kind of I wrote a check and I've created some of the, the structure and backed myself out. So, but they're mostly in that stage, and some of them are doing better than others. Some of them need more of my help than others. Yeah. But I'm kind of at that point in my life where it's like, I'm with these businesses, I'm going to do what I want to do. Nice. in terms of being involved with them.
What's like a goal you have right now?
Dude, I'm in this weird phase of my life where I'm trying to figure out my next steps. I just wrote a book. I just locked the manuscript yesterday. So wow. Yeah.
Congrats. So that's crazy.
We're working on book designs done. There's all these stages that I wasn't familiar with. I have an editor. And so we're in proofreading right now. Nice. Once proofreading's done, they go through and they format it so it's nice on the page and stuff. Yeah. But I'm on this weird kick where I've been talking a lot about wealth building. I've spoken twice in the last 2 weeks to fairly large groups about what it takes to build wealth. And I speak to entrepreneurs about this. And, for me, I grew up, I don't think I'd say poor, but, my dad was a car mechanic. Sometimes he sold tractors. There were 8 of us in about a 1,200 square foot house with one bathroom. I slept on the ground for the first 8 years of my life. Wow. And dude, I didn't know any different. Yeah. And so, but what I did learn is that we just have a lot more control over our lives than we give ourselves credit for sometimes. So
I love that.
I started reading books about 20 years ago about building wealth. And I didn't stop. I've read hundreds of books about the abundance theory, abundance mentality, the psychology of money, and all these things. And I distilled from these books 10 laws that govern money. I didn't create the laws. I don't think anybody created them. But so I'm on this kick where I'm talking a lot about money. I'm talking about those 10 laws that I discovered from these books. And if you follow the 10 laws, regardless of what your personal definition of wealth is, you will obtain it. Nice. It's like guaranteed. It's like these are laws that govern money. And a lot of people think it's just money's just chance. And it's just not. The wealthy people follow these laws.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a kick I'm on.
Well, you've read the book, was it The Science of Getting Rich or The Science of Becoming Rich or something like that?
Okay. I don't know if I have or not.
It takes a philosophical approach towards becoming rich, but it's literally what you just said. And it's people look at it as, oh, it's such a vague book. It's like, no, it's kind of the path to becoming wealthy and rich.
Yeah.
And people like you with real world experience can read a book like that or read a plethora of books and put it down into like a really concise manuscript on how to become rich. So.
Yeah, dude, for me, it's just, I was reading these books and then I noticed the same theme over and over and over. And we're talking about books that some of them were written 100 years before another book. And it's like, dude, they're talking about the same thing, but they kind of talk about it in different ways. And so I made this connection. I'm like, dude, these guys they have the same themes. Yeah. And a lot of them are things that we've heard about over and over. Like, hey, you got to diversify your assets.
Yeah.
You got to have multiple streams of passive income. It's like, dude, it's not like I created like some spaceship or something. Yeah. I've just distilled these laws into really simple things that like most people understand.
It's your experience, which is what helps. And
for sure.
And that's what people need. And it kind of goes back to, it's like, man, the flashy and the colorful and the outgoing people of the world, a lot of times they made their money in not very normal ways. They made it through very obscure ways that's extremely hard to replicate.
Yeah.
And that's why, me and you, if there was a social media guy here right now who's made millions of dollars, we wouldn't knock him at all. Like, dude, that's sick. You actually did it probably harder than most people do it.
For sure.
Like,
that's hard.
It's extremely hard. But the problem is it's extremely hard to replicate.
Yeah.
And teach people how to do it. Yeah. Because there's so much that goes into it. I have a friend, and he hired Wes Watson to be his life coach. Yeah. Wow. Right. And at the same time, I hired Jimmy Rex, and I'm a part of this men's group, and they're my coaching group. And so we kind of did it at the same time.
Yeah.
And wow, what different outcomes we have. And neither one is right or wrong, but at the same time, it's like it is very easy to replicate, kind of like, I should say, I don't want to call myself a replica, but in a way, it's like, it's a proven path that has helped men over and over and over and over again. And I plugged into it. I learned how to become vulnerable. I learned how to open up. I learned how to do all these things. And my life has become more wealthy because of it. Whereas other people, it's like, hey, they became wealthy, which is great, but that doesn't mean, one, that they know how to teach you to become wealthy.
Yeah.
Or two, that it's an easy thing to replicate. And so I really applaud and appreciate guys like you who take the time, because it takes a lot of time to write a book and to do this research, to teach others how to become wealthy. Because again, you became wealthy, but it takes a lot of time and effort to teach others how to do it. It's not an easy, quick thing.
Yeah. And I think, you bring up a couple of really good points, but one of them is the path is like, well, two things I want to say. One is I don't care about somebody else's path. I care about my path, and I care about your path. Right. And so if that, with Jimmy Rex, if that worked for you, that's all that matters.
Right. Yeah.
Right. That's all that matters. And when we look for mentors and we take things from people that have kind of gone before us, you make sure that it's leading you to the path that you want to be on. There's a lot of people, dude, that I don't know that they want to be a Wes Watson. Right. And it's like, but that's the first thing. And the second thing is, because our paths are unique, even if we've learned from people that have gone before us and we're not reinventing the wheel with every single thing, our path and the way that we're doing it is unique just because of our background, our experiences, and how we do it. So you should never feel bad for having a mentor and listening to that person, because yeah, dude, that just shook the entire house.
Yeah, we have a storm outside. Okay, good.
But
you should never feel bad for having a mentor.
And learning from them and like employing a lot of the things that they say, because your path's going to be different. And if you try to, I heard somebody say this recently, if you try to be the next Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Elon Musk, it's like you can't get that successful because that time has already passed, right? It's like you can't really replicate what they've done because you're on your own path, and it's like this new, you have to find your own way. So dude, I learned so much from people that have gone before me.
Yeah.
And dude, I'll never be ashamed of saying like, I tried that and it worked, and I'm going to do it until it doesn't work.
Yeah, that's right. I think way too many people try to leave what is working for something that is more glamorous that maybe won't work or maybe will.
Yeah.
For a promise of something that's greater. It's like, if it's working, if it's making you money, sorry, like put a couple things on hold and stick with it, in my opinion. One of the last things I was going to say about your path. So, I mean, the lawyer background is phenomenal. You started so many businesses, but you're a pretty spiritual guy, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to be.
Yeah.
I
try to be as well. So I don't know. I'm just curious. I've asked more people recently because I've been on a very big spiritual kick. If that's played a role into how you start companies or how you do business.
Yeah. I mean, I like to think so. Right.
Okay.
Dude, I have a lot of imposter syndrome. And so when people say Allan's successful, he has a great family, like, dude, I have a really hard time accepting compliments because I'm always judging myself. But, and honestly dude, I've made a lot of mistakes. I've treated people, in some cases too harshly, or I have a bunch of business partners I'm no longer business partners with. And I wish I could have a few of those decisions back.
Yeah.
But the way that I look at like my spiritual life and my relationship with God is, and I make mistakes all the time, dude.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to be the first one to say that. But I feel like it just gives me this structure, dude, so the wheels don't fall off. Because sometimes it feels like, dude, am I going too fast? Like, are things out of control? Like,
yeah.
And so it helps me put things in perspective.
Yeah.
When I have it, sometimes I'm like, I'm not even thinking about that, right? I'm thinking about other things, and my focus isn't where it should be. Yeah. But dude, it kind of keeps me grounded. I know that at any minute, dude, like God could snap his fingers and Allan starts from scratch.
Wow.
So it's like, dude, how much, like, and I need to live more like that with that in my mind. But dude, it's such an important part of what I'm trying to do, because my wealth building is like number 5 on my priority list. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like my relationship with God first, my relationship with my family second.
Yeah.
My mental, emotional state, where I am physically, my professional career, not the money side. Like, what am I building?
Yeah.
So it's actually number 6.
Yeah.
Is the wealth building. So no, it's an important part of what I do, because I believe there's something after this life, dude.
Yeah.
And I can't take my money with me. So I better build something that matters in the process. I like to say that our goal shouldn't be to live forever in this world. Our goal should be to create something that does. And the only way to do that is we got to do something for other people. Otherwise, it just dies with us.
Absolutely. I love how you said just barely that you can't take the money with you. So you need to build something that you can take with you. And the thought that came in my mind is that, you have to build yourself into the spiritual, emotional being, intellectual being that is going to be proud to leave this earth with all the knowledge that it could gain and everything. So that's great. Yeah. I've been incorporating, even just this past week, I've been incorporating, I'm reading a book called Conversations with God. It's one of my favorite books I've ever read. And I'm just becoming a lot more spiritually minded. I'm seeing it in my life. I'm focusing on it, which is helping me see it in my life, right? Well, it's funny. I'm up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and I'm meeting with families and selling them solar. And it happens every time. Oh, I'm from Utah. Oh, you're from Utah. Oh, cool. Are you Mormon? And they start asking me questions. Well, people from Oklahoma and Texas, at least the ones I'm dealing with, are phenomenal people. They're very, Christ-like and God-fearing people, and they want to have conversations about it. And for some reason in the past, I always believed that, business is business, spiritual is spiritual. But now I'm starting to find a bridge where I'm able to speak spiritually with these people and talk to them, and it opens it up, and it opens up a level of, I don't want to say trust, because I don't want that to sound like misleading, but it opens up to the point where it's like, hey, I can see your values pretty clearly,
Yeah.
And you can see my values pretty clearly because we're talking on not a surface level like business can be. And so, yeah, kind of trying to take the business from the surface level into deeper levels with business partners and with customers. So
for sure,
I appreciate your response on that.
For sure.
What's so the book is coming out hopefully when?
Late spring, early summer.
Awesome. Okay, so a few months. And what was the name of the book? Do you already have it?
I'm doing like a title release coming up pretty soon.
Okay, we'll say it then. That's awesome though. Fantastic. So book is coming out, and then you're doing speaking gigs. If people wanted to like have you come to a speaking gig just through Instagram, they should reach out.
Yeah, Instagram or my website, allandraper.com. You can book me there.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing more. I think we're going to need to do a follow-up episode.
For sure. Anytime, man. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Thanks, dude.
All right, brother.